Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 11th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. As we always do, I'd first like to ask us to stand for the pledge. Afterwards, if we could, please have a moment of silence, as it is September 11th, for all the souls we've lost. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Aaron Bach for covering the last two meetings. Did an excellent job. And I also want to welcome a Yorktown native, Ian Ritchie, to the planning board staff. I'm sure he's going to do great things here. Welcome aboard. All right, we're going to start out with correspondence, which we have quite a book here. Anybody have anybody they want to add to it or anything they want to say?
No.
Good.
Nothing to add here.
Okay. Move on to meeting minutes. We have the meeting minutes of August 14th, 2023. Any comments, corrections?
No.
I was not here, so I have to abstain. Is there a motion?
Move to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving to the regular portion of the meeting. First on the agenda, we have the Volta EV charging stations at Staples Plaza. They're requesting a first one-year time extension. How are you?
Good, thank you. How's everyone doing?
Very well, thank you.
My name is Allison Fauser. I'm an associate attorney with the law firm Cuddy and Fader. I'm covering for my colleague Kristen Motel and appearing on behalf of Volta Charging. Volta is requesting a 1 year of their site plan approval granted by this board last year. That approval related to 2 EV charging stations at the Staples Plaza on Compound Road. There are no changes to the approved plan. Volta is merely seeking additional time given certain recent corporate updates that led to delay of development efforts. You may have read about it, but Volta was acquired by Shell earlier this year. So in the period leading up to that acquisition, during and following, all development efforts were paused. The good news is that Volta is now ready to continue its deployment efforts and has identified Yorktown as a priority site for deployment. So we're eager to move forward here. I just understand that there are some logistics to coordinate with project consultants and engineers to file the building permit application.
Okay. Anything from the board?
Nope.
John?
Nothing from here.
Okay, that being said, do I have a motion to accept the request for a second one-year time, first one-year time extension for the charging stations at Staples Plaza?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very
much. Excuse me. Okay, next we have 670 East Main Street. This is a decision statement. How are you?
All right, guys.
We're here with no engineer tonight. Okay, have you had a chance to take a look at everything? Any issues? Good. Any issues from the board?
None here.
Nope.
John?
No issues from us.
Do I have a motion to declare the planning board the lead agency?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In front of us, we have a neg deck for the same project. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then lastly, we have, let me get to it, a resolution approving residential site plan for the proposed townhouses at 670 East Main Street. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All set.
Good luck.
Good luck with the project.
Good luck.
Okay. Next, we have Enviro Green Associates. This is a request for a second one-year time extension. Locations 1875 East Main Street, Mohegan Lake.
Hello, everybody. Joseph
Serena,
Arena, the
how are
Principal
you?
Site Design Consultants, Project Engineer for Enviro Green.
In July, we finally received our DEC wetland permit for this project, and we are awaiting the Army Corps permit, which I've been told is imminent. And we would have then satisfied everything we need to get the site plan signed.
Okay.
All right.
Any issues from the board?
No.
John?
No issues here.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the request for a second one-year time extension for BioGreen Associates?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, next we have Guiding Eyes for the Blind. This is a training school kennel, locations 3241 Crampon Road. This is a public hearing, so do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Counselor?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz here this evening. Pleased to be representing Guiding Eyes. I'm joined by Tom Panic and Bill Ma from Guiding Eyes. Joe Rena is with me as well. Phil Greeley and Tony Russo, our wetlands and tree consultant from ECSI. This is a continuation of the public hearing. We've already received comments from your board, from the public, from various other boards and agencies. We're pleased today we received a memo from the Tree Conservation Commission. I think we've been able to go back and forth and analyze and respond to their comments on trees. We also got a favorable memo today from the Conservation Board, also addressing some of the issues that we have addressed. We've got our whole team here, Mr. Chairman. We're prepared, if you wish. Joe can take us briefly through the modifications to the site plan. As the board knows, and for the benefit of the public, once again, this is an application to do a state-of-the-art new kennel facility for Guiding Eyes that would house up to 200 canines, as well as a veterinary clinic specifically for the canines that are in residence with Guiding Eyes. I'm joined, as I said, by Phil Greeley from Collier's Engineering. He can go through the traffic if you wish. We've submitted a traffic report. I think we've identified how our traffic is below that which was originally part of the Temple Israel traffic, which was baked into the Lowe's traffic analysis. However, Phil is here to answer any questions.
Why don't we start out with, let me ask a question to the audience, because there's a lot of people here tonight, and I know we have another public informational hearing after this, which I think there's going to be a lot of people for. How many are here to hear about the Guiding Eyes project? We got one. Okay. So why don't we start off with Joe Rena, let him go through
Terrific.
his.
You got it.
And we'll see what kind of questions we have.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Joseph Rena, the Principal Site Design Consultants and Project Engineer for Guiding Eyes for the Blind, where Guiding Eyes is proposing a canine health and wellness center, and it's located on Crampon Road and Mohansick Avenue. It's opposite the Lowe's Shopping Center, so it's easy to identify the location. This is the corner of Mohansick and Crampon. This is the gas station here. Signs Inc. right here. So this is the site. Currently there's an existing residence on the site that will be demolished as part of this. The residence has been abandoned. The site will access over the existing driveway. So that one. So the site will be accessed over the existing driveway. So these lighter green areas on the fringe here, those are wetlands, local wetlands that have been delineated and surveyed. The orange area beyond that, that's the buffer. So as you can see, part of the development will be in the buffer area. The the proposal is to construct a kennel facility with that's going to be approximately, kennel pods and veterinary facilities, as well as administrative offices. It's going to be approximately 36,000 square feet. As you enter the site, let me just go to the blow-up view. as you enter the site here, we're crossing an existing culvert, which we're going to replace with a larger culvert. Our proposed roadway coming in is 26 feet wide, as required by the fire department for emergency access. And as part of that, we're going to be removing or disturbing some of the wetland area. It's not very much, and Tony Russo will get into that a little later. As you come into the site, there's a loop road that takes you around the back of the building and brings you back around. It's gated at 2 locations, right here and right here. Visitors will be required to park in this front parking area here, and the remainder of the spaces will be used for vans and for the staff. There are 11 pods around the building. The pods are where the kennels are going to be for the dogs. There'll be 10 kennels in each pod. Each pod will have, each of the kennels will have an exterior space to allow the dogs to get out and get some fresh air or to exercise. There's a center courtyard area that's a isolation area and Paul, our architect, will explain that in more detail. The parking spaces, as we're showing here, are all going to be porous pavement, and our stormwater, all the stormwater from the impervious areas are going to be collected and brought to an underground infiltration system, which is going to be off this back edge of the site. That's this green area right here, and that's where our infiltration system is going to be. There's going to be sewer, water, gas brought into the site. All the utilities will be underground. Just go back for a minute. As we've brought to your attention previously, this area here is a New York State DEC designated construction debris landfill. And again, Tony will explain that a little further. And we're, as part of this project, Guiding Eye is going to remediate that area under a permit to be issued by the DEC. So that's the extent of the project. You want me to go in a little deeper? I can.
Why don't we hit a pause, because I know we got one resident that is here to speak to the application.
Yeah.
So maybe we could find out if he's got anything he wants to ask, and we could try to address that.
Good idea.
Okay.
Please. How are you tonight?
Good evening. Darren Vajacki, 2471 Mohansk Avenue. I have some other family on the southern border in other houses, and also a property owner of some vacant land. I had some concerns to try to get a better feel of the cut line of that parcel and the buffer zone on the top of the cut. I guess it's, Joe was trying to explain it a little bit to me as a 50-foot area before the cut goes off, is the way I was kind of explained just now. And then also, as you go to the southwest, we also have some property down there, and I was just trying to see what the loop around into the woods. You guys, I think a few of you walked the property. So if you were going southwest, to see what the buffer would be in that area, fencing or screening for the future of possibly a homeowner living there with the 30-foot setback off the property line, right?
Yep.
30 foot for residential, 50 commercial.
So you're looking for the cut line, you're looking at what kind of buffer, if there's going to be a fence, any kind of screening
Those are
proposed?
some of the issues, yeah. We discussed a little bit of sewer options, and then I know they're coming with a sound test results also tonight. Right. So some of that too, if I could explain that a little bit more. I kind of wasn't fully following how that test worked out as far as noise going up an 8-foot barrier versus kind of no noise.
What was your question about the sewer?
We were just having discussions if there was options for a sewer connection.
Okay.
out of that property to pick up other areas in the area. In the past, Joe's done some work before, and there was some joint designs that didn't go anywhere, weren't built, that had some stormwater together with the other property.
Okay.
But those things didn't happen, but I was just talking those through.
Okay.
So, yeah, so some of my issues, I guess, are basically the noise, the border line wrapping down and how the cut and the elevations will change on the whole southern southwest border going down the hill a little bit.
Okay.
And then I think lighting is kind of, I don't think Guiding Eyes is too overdoing it with lights. Bill was kind enough to have me over at his facility that he runs, so I kind of walk through there. They keep a nice property. As I said in the informational hearing, for Guiding Eyes, the organization, just want to try to have a little bit of time to gather up what's going to be there in the future. There's not too many people that will speak on the project, not too many people in that area. My family's kind of has that whole cluster back there, so I'm the guy who's here.
Okay.
So, and I appreciate you're taking your time and taking a good look at that area there.
No problem. We'll make sure we get
Yeah.
these.
All right,
sections
great.
in. Thank
And
you.
if I think of something else, I'll pop back up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public have any questions? So,
Yeah, just to get to that point,
Yep.
so the extent of our, this dash line right here, that's a 50-foot setback off the property line. And then, the brighter green area, that's the extent of our development or cuts or disturbance. So for the most part, we are no more than 50 feet closer to that property line. And as you'll see later on in the presentation of the landscape plan, we're providing some extensive buffering along this whole edge here. This part of the project is in cut. So we're creating an embankment along this edge here as high as, around 15 feet in the corner here. And then it goes down, and here we reach grade, and here now we're filling and raising the site in order to accommodate the back part of the site of the parking. As I said, this is our stormwater system is right here, so you can see again that's at least 50 feet away from the property line. If I go back to this. So to bring it in a little tighter, that's Mr. Vijacki's house right there. This is the rear portion of his property where said he was considering some future development. So as you can see, pretty much the extent of what we're doing will reach about here as far as disturbance and opening up that area. We'll be maintaining the existing, not to there, to about here, and we'll be maintaining a 50-foot buffer along that edge, at least a 50-foot buffer.
and the possible sewer connection down the road?
Guiding Eyes is considering allowing or providing an easement and possibly facilitating the installation of a future sewer connection through our site. Currently, the sewer is located, when they built the Lowe's site, the sewer was brought across, and it's here. We need to extend it up the hill to about here to make a connection to it because of the stream there, and we can't get underneath the stream. So we'll be bringing our service connection in through here. So, we're playing with the idea of maybe providing an easement and allowing a future sewer connection in that same trench.
Joe, would that have to be a separate lateral?
Yes,
For his residence, you couldn't tie a lateral into a lateral?
you cannot. It would have to be a separate lateral. But if it's for multiple homes, it's going to require a sewer main.
So you would
So let's say if
size
it's-
it for the main at this point?
Right, so let's say if it's two service connections, you could easily run two service connections in the same trench.
Right.
Two additional service connections.
Okay.
If it's for multiple homes, then it becomes, more than two homes, then it becomes a little more complicated, and we'd have to run a sewer main up, which would require health department approval, and that's a whole different animal. What we're talking about is maybe allowing one or two sewer connections.
If you did that, it would become a public main.
If we ran
Yeah.
a full 8-inch main up, it would be a public.
Got more than two, it becomes,
Well, not if they're separate not if they're a separate lateral.
but if you're tying into the same line?
Well, they would tie into the line that we're gonna run up along 202, that's gonna be a public main.
Right.
So we'll be bringing our service connection and two additional service connections to tie into that new main that we're gonna install.
And you're gonna terminate that at a manhole, I would assume.
Right.
So if there's one house, you got the shelter, and then you put another house, you'd have to run if you had tied all those into one line, it would be then a public main.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, he can't do that, they would have to be, each one would
Each
have
one
to be separate.
individual easements.
Right.
Okay.
Anything
Is
else?
the landscape architect here?
Yes, she is.
Can we, before we get to that, the noise study was done, I see one dated August 24th, and that was done at your request. There are certain recommendations that are contained in there. Could you address those and just, are you going to include those in the plan?
That dog didn't even, dog didn't even bark.
Is that a test, Aaron?
Yes.
Our architect will address the noise question.
Do you have anything else you want to hear from me? You want me to go into in-depth on anything else?
Anybody from the board have any?
No.
John?
No.
Well, I'm going to have questions
Right.
on the noise in particular, but I'd like to hear.
Yeah, let's hear from
Yeah,
the architect.
But, just to state that we've submitted SWIP, all applications are in place, EAF, so we've got a complete submittal in your hands, and at this point, we'll move on, and I guess Phil's gonna,
No, I think we're gonna go right.
oh, gonna go right to Paul? Okay,
Follow towards the-
okay.
Paul Gladys, BDA Architecture. I'm the principal architect and project lead on this project. You may remember our firm, we specialize in animal care facilities. That's all we do them across the country and in other countries. The goal of this is to develop a state-of-the-art training kennel for guiding eyes. This is going to be probably one of the more sophisticated facilities in the country, and it's something that we're putting an awful lot of time and effort into controlling those things that can potentially become issues for the neighbors, right? And so those typically are going to be things like noise, odor, pathogen control, and all of those are incorporated into the design of the building. I have a copy of CERMI's acoustic study, and I will point out that that study was done, they did testing at the existing facility, which has none of the features that we're building into this facility. So the source noise is much greater at the existing kennel than it will be here. Basically, in a nutshell, with this, with the recommendations that they had on this study, indicates that when these are installed, the noise emanating from the site, worst case, will be less than the ambient noise level of the site, the housing site that exists today. So in other words, it will be, the noise that comes from our site will be quieter than the noise that's coming from other sources now. I'm not an acoustic expert when it comes to site acoustics. They couldn't be here today, but I can talk in more detail about what we incorporating within the building so that you can understand the steps that we're going through to mitigate those sound issues.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay,
We would
so, first of all, when it comes to dogs making noise, the more dogs you have together, the more noise they're gonna wanna make, right? One dog sets off and the other dogs just kind of join in. So one of the things that we want to do is compartmentalize. Can we put the renderings up? Thanks. When we were talking about these pods, that's part of that design solution. So each, the building is configured with a main core building that has services in it, and then perimeter are going to be these pods that hold the dogs, right? So what we want to see is the overhead, if you have those, the renderings. No, like the overhead. Yeah. You just blow that. So you can see the core building that's in the center, right? And that's the one that has the larger roof, and then there's a white flat roof that's next to that, and then there's a couple of courtyards just to the south of that, and then the perimeter that goes just to the south of that. That's all part of the core building. And that's going to house a veterinary hospital, some training rooms within that, internal training rooms, staff offices, and support facilities like laundry and utilities maintenance, things like that. Around it are these buildings that hold 2 pods each. There's 5 of those. And each half holds a total of 10 dogs, right? And so by compartmentalizing, you only have 10 dogs at any given time. And the way that they're housed, there are only 2 dogs in a run, right? So further compartmentalizing it. So the most effective sound control is reduce the source, make the source quieter, right? And all of these things we have found are very successful in minimizing the amount of barking that's created at all. The next thing is going to be absorption. So within the building itself, we're going to have a substantial amount of acoustic material, ceilings, like, a ceiling like this is an acoustic ceiling, not a very high performing ceiling, but similar to that kind of a concept, along with additional surface that's going to be on the higher walls. And that all goes to absorbing the sounds before it exits the building. Typically, these kennels have an indoor and an outdoor side. Here we're going to have an indoor and an indoor side, which is kind of screwy, but what it really means is we've enclosed the exterior side of the runs, especially on the south side, so that there is less opportunity for a dog to be barking outside, right? Because when a dog barks outside, it's a little bit less controlled than we can do on the inside. The yards that they were talking about, which each pod has 2 separate yards, which means you can only have 10 dogs at a time outside together, right? That minimizes, right now they can have 70 or 80 dogs outside, and that's where the study measured the sound. We've reduced that down to a maximum of 10. And on the south side, those are fully enclosed with sound-absorbing fencing. These are the kinds of fences that you would put around, say, an outdoor generator to absorb the sound so that it's not obtrusive. By putting in those barriers, along with the distance separation, the berm achieved by the cut is where Stormy is saying that the noise that leaves our site and goes to the property line of the house will be less than the current ambient sound level. So that's a long way of getting to, it's going to be a quiet site. Does that help with the explanation a little bit? And I have copies of this report. I think you guys maybe
We do have it, yeah.
You guys, okay.
The only question I had was
Yep.
if the recommendation of the report is for sound barriers along one side.
Yes.
And I don't know if I saw it, maybe I missed it in the drawings themselves that were submitted.
These.
That's all.
So-
sound barriers called baked into your design?
Yes, they are. So if you look at, these aren't, it's page 4 of 6. The
Of what?
lines that they show in red on that report are
Yeah.
where those sound barriers are recommended to go. And those are the enclosing fences for the dog yards I just mentioned, the ones that have the sound absorbing characteristics. That's built into this design.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
And Aaron, we have no problem if that's an express condition.
Okay, good. That's really where I was going with it. Because I know the dates came in pretty close where the plan set in this report for a day or two apart. I just want to make sure it gets in. Thank you.
I'll be, so you know, I think some greater clarity and explanation, I think, might be worthwhile here.
Yeah.
I find it, I haven't followed it all yet, so like a little more explanation on it, not right this second.
Okay. From the acoustic expert or from architectural
I
side?
think,
Or both?
or I think both.
Okay.
John, just in that, just so we understand, and hopefully can conclude the hearing this evening, will we get something in writing from you, a memo with your questions so that they can be answered before we would come back to the board for a resolution?
I'm happy to do a memo. I'm also happy to have a meeting with you.
That's fine as well. That's more efficient.
One
We're
or
happy-
both, or,
Perfect.
you know, happy to spend as much time as possible to make sure that all the, you know, clarity is fully brought to the board and everybody understands what they're going to get when they get it.
That's fine. I just would note for the record that Zephyr is probably the quietest member of our team. That's why we brought that Zephyr here this evening.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the architectural side at all?
Are you gonna be dealing with the lighting, or?
Site lighting,
Yes, or the lighting of the building?
internal to the building or?
Exterior.
Yes, we can talk about that, and that's on one of the elevations, the style of the lighting. So all of these will be cut-off type fixtures, you know, so that we're not spilling light outside of our site. So if you could just go to the page that shows the materials, that shows the fixture. I think there's a... So, yeah, in the lower right corner, you can see the style of the light. These are kind of architectural style fixtures. So that's the flavor that we're looking for. And these are going to be mounted primarily over the staff entrances and the pod entrances. So part of the training methodology, most of the training actually happens off-site. So the dogs are loaded into vans and taken away, right? Most of the day, they're gone. They're you know, on site most of the time. So to facilitate that loading and unloading in the winter time, when it gets dark early and, you know, some of these, it's going to be primarily in those areas that these lights are going to occur. There'll be some lights at the signage mounted on the building at the front, facing towards the east, towards the road. And then beyond that would be the site lighting that Joe has for the parking. So did that answer the questions as far as the building mounted lights?
I think so.
The, I don't see it in here. Did you provide the cut sheet and all of the
Yes.
lumen distribution of the fixture?
We have the cut sheet.
Okay.
So these are going to be the utility yard lights that you're seeing right here. Again, cut-off fixtures that are going to be, you know, specifically within those yards, and so we don't want any spill leaving the yard itself. Those small contained yards attached to each one of those pods.
Okay.
How about in the parking area? Any of the parking areas?
Joe.
For the parking area, there's going to be a mix of bollard lighting and your typical LED sky compliant lighting. I could bring up a cut on that. As far as what's going to be occurring on this most southern edge of the parking area, the foot candles don't exceed 0.5. So once we get beyond that, I mean, we'll have 0 foot candles probably before we hit the buffer, the planted buffer. So we'll be well compliant with that and below what is necessary to provide just minimal. 0.5 is pretty minimal lighting that you know, that we're going to be providing there, and it's more or less just for safety. as Paul had said, especially during the evening hours.
You think we could see the cuts?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, fancy.
So it's LED, and again, it's a night compliant fixture,
It's not
Pole
hin-
mounted.
Not hinged at all.
fixed.
Lighting? No. All right, you think we could hear from the landscape architect?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Abigail Adams, registered landscape architect, owner of A2 Land Consulting out of New Fairfield, Connecticut. Would you like me to run through the entire landscape plan, or do you just want to go through specific questions?
I think the question we heard most importantly is the screening and the buffer.
Sure, sure. Yep, so along the south side here, thank you, Joe, for pulling that up. We are actually proposing about 73 evergreens in this area. We've got a mixture of white firs, American holly, green giant arborvitae, let's see if I have one more, and eastern red cedar along this area. We're going to intermix them right at the base of the cut and the fill where we have the mix there, right into the wooded area. We'll lay those out in the field for the most ideal positioning so it works with the existing wooded area that we have there. The install height we're proposing is 7 to 8 feet for this material, but again, 73 evergreen trees as we come along that southern border and wrap the southwestern side there.
And I gotta imagine we're big fans of your work.
Thank
Done
you.
a lot of great stuff in town.
Thank you.
With this added material, I gotta imagine that the visual, not only with the lighting, probably cut down on the sound, anything that might spill off.
Yes. Yes, it will definitely help, especially as once the material starts to mature, it's established and starts growing together.
And it looks like it's continuous.
Yes, we're trying to keep it as continuous as possible.
Those are represented as mature plantings right there?
Those
Generally in scale, close to, or?
Generally, when I do the landscape plan, I typically have them 80% mature, so not quite full size.
Thank you.
So when you say 7 to 8 feet tall, that's at planting,
Yes, that's the install.
okay? And they'll be planted on the top of the high part of the cut.
Correct.
So that cut is about 15 feet, as I recall, correct, Joe?
At the highest.
Right. So if you say a 7 or 8 foot tree on top of a 15-foot cut, you're roughly 22, 23 feet. And how high is the building overall?
If you're looking at the pods,
You bet-
the pods that are closest to the site on the bottom there,
Mhm.
the peak of the roof, we have a clear story roof that goes up on top there to bring natural light in.
Right.
Those are about 24 feet to that ridge.
So we've given a year or two of growth, you're basically not going to see the building from the south side of the property.
That's correct. That's
Roughly.
the intent.
Okay.
Did you have a chance to review the tree commission's memo that came in over the weekend, I guess? September 10th?
Pass it right over.
Yes, hello, Tony Russo, Environmental Compliance Services.
Boy,
What question, yes, we read through the, today's memo, and it's fine. If you're talking about the willows, and we plan to work with them to provide trees and coordinate a joint purchase. Because they were looking, I guess, to get the quantity for cheaper price, for the town nursery.
thank you.
Do you need Mr. Greeley, Dr. Greeley for anything?
I think we know that the traffic is under what it was originally. Let me go back out to the audience still first. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments about the application? You gotta have to come up, go.
Gotta repeat the question.
Yeah. If you could repeat the question, just because we couldn't hear it.
Joe, I don't know that off the top of my head. Let's see.
Distance of the planes to our side.
Yeah, I don't have that. Maybe if we go to the overall plan, that might give us a better, this is an enlargement, so it's not as easy to see the full. There we go.
So, again, that dashed line, hits the fringe of our cut. That's a 50-foot mark off the property line. So, in and about 50 feet to, how far in?
25 maybe?
Yeah, to 25 feet.
Basically, a 40-foot strip of land will be utilized for the plantings.
So anything on the south side behind
Oh,
those
the-
plantings to the property line, how much distance?
Okay, he's got it.
You got it. We're gonna get in trouble with Tom, because they can't hear you outside of here.
His question was, once again, what's the distance between the southernmost plantings and the southern property line? And it sounds like, Mr. Vajaki, it's about 5 to 10 feet.
So that will not be anything vagrant growing.
What would be there? It would be natural.
Yeah, natural, yes. Yes, that's remaining natural. We're just adding the evergreen trees to increase that wooded area.
And I assume you're leaving some space so that these trees can grow into that
Absolutely.
area.
There's probably more like 20 feet, I would say, to the property line.
Yeah, I had a discussion earlier with somebody else, and I kind of.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little unclear on what that is. We were talking about it before, about the plantings being below the cut or above the cut, and then if they're on top of the cut, how much room will be beyond that to the property line? I say that just because it's kind of like a bramble of prickers and sumac and all sorts of stuff right to the property line. So I'm just wondering how much space is going to be like an unkept area
Talking
of
about a natural
brambles and
buffer.
prickers and blah, 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 rather than a fence maybe or something like that, where somebody wouldn't be going up there and maintaining it. If it's so-called wild area, it'd be wild to
Yeah, what,
20 feet of prickers.
Right. I would
So
say that
that's,
it's
you know.
probably about 25 feet.
so 25 feet, and then you have a planted area.
Yes, then
Then
we
the
start
cut.
our planting, our evergreen, and then we get into the cut.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure, well, nobody.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be better to have that as a maintained area or have it be a wild, is there a man, I think there was somebody who spoke specifically to trees at one point. So did you inventory any of that?
Yes, what you have.
You got it.
It is wild, and you have trees mostly, so the crowns are high up, so you can see through a little bit. But you do have some invasives that are attacking those trees too, so it's kind of a mixed bag. As you come close to Mahansik, there are some shrubs along the property line, and that's about it. That's where the wetland, there's a culvert under the road, so there's wetlands north and south.
So at some point, the invasives are gonna take out the trees.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, of course, but there's nothing spectacular there other than, mostly trees. Yeah, and a lot of invasives. You have wild cherries that are failing, and you have black locusts quite a bit over on that side.
All right, so with the existing trees, the buffer between the two, and the additional, basically, wall of evergreens, it should be.
Yeah, what's being proposed is a significant improvement for that area as it wraps around too, so.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes,
So
sir.
if I, oh, sorry.
I just am going to suggest that you just produce a plan that shows all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we could do a
I-
cross-section.
It's
Yeah,
very
I-
easy
I-
with
I-
limited disturbance.
I think what Mr. Vajaki is saying is right now that area is very unkept, and he'd like to see it kept up, maybe the brush cut down, and then he would see the backside of the plantings, and we can ask him if that's what he's
Yeah, I think
trying
he's
to
shaking
say.
his head, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
So, Guiding Eyes is willing to keep that area, at least keep the bramble and brush under control. You know, maybe a couple of times a year, cut it down or whatnot. So he's not looking at undesirable.
I think we understand.
Okay.
At that point, maybe it's better to plant right to that border and maybe have a fence there and plant to it. Because if you have a screening, a land cut, nobody's really gonna come up there with a machine to cut that on a, it's just gonna be kind of messy. If you were there to see it, you'd know
So
exactly.
you would
what I
rather
was
see it
getting
more
at.
kept than
I'd probably say on the open space, if you're not out there, it's hard to
No,
tell.
I remember.
You guys look through the woods a little bit, you can kind of tell from your past.
We saw you when we were out there, I think.
Yeah, so like
Right.
on that space there, if you leave the prickers and the brambles, it's kind of, I don't know if it's an improvement to still leave me with the prickers and brambles. Yeah, that
All right,
I
so-
cut back to try to keep them from, coming 3 feet out.
Why don't we do this? As,
And
John
you
Dyke-
can see a little bit, sorry to interrupt.
no problem.
But it kind of, if you're going to I would say the southeast of the plantings, so I think there's like a dumpster area there, maybe on the lower part of the cut. Is that in the corner, Joe? So maybe it would pay to wrap that a little bit further to the front of the building, the plantings, right? To somewhere going to the right a little bit.
Around the east side.
Yes. And then it kind of, you see how it kind of slopes off the plantings or distance-wise as it goes to the southwest? So I just like to get a little gauge what's going on in there, if I could, with somebody a little bit more definitive. I think you guys you're not definitive on what's being said there. And I think just maybe it would be an improvement to be a little more clear on what we were trying to accomplish there.
Why don't we do this? So we're gonna have work sessions after this with the applicant.
Sure.
Let's get, as John Tegeter had suggested, a cross-section, and we'll work with them to tweak it so that I think everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, reasonable,
Yeah.
I just think if you're gonna leave 20 to 15 feet, there's no sense leaving pricker bushes at 15 feet. When
makes
you're
sense
putting
to
in
us, I
beautiful
think.
stuff for 25 feet, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Really appreciate your
Thanks.
input.
We will provide those cross-sections and we will come back and resolve that issue. And we'll discuss wrapping around the additional landscaping at our future work session.
Understood. Let me just check one more time, because people have come in and out. Anybody else want to speak to the application?
Guiding Eyes.
Please, just come up to the mic. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm Tim Bichek, I'm the owner of Signs Inc. I'm the owner of Signs Inc. We're right on 202, right below, and I think everything that they're coming up with and have proposed is going to be a big benefit to what we have there now, and I look forward to having them as neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you for comment.
Any comments from the board?
None.
John?
Nothing at present.
All right, so that said,
We would ask, Mr. Chairman, that the board entertain closing tonight's public hearing.
do we want to leave it open for a written comment? Or at this point, is it?
Yeah, especially if we're gonna come on the work session.
No objection to
10
that at
days.
all.
But let's close it.
All right, so I
subject
have a
to-
motion to close the Guiding Eyes for the Blind Training School kennel with a 10-day written comment period.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
all.
much.
We'll see you soon.
Sorry, Phil.
Still submit a bill.
Go ahead.
Okay. MGM.
He has some site. Oh, yeah, he has some site, yeah, the guy.
This is information.
I see a Lascala property next to this one coming up, is that?
We'll just get everybody a minute to settle down.
The house is not mine anymore, I give it to my daughter, so I only rent. No, but they're Mercy,
Yeah, that's right.
but there's a lot between me and my house. That's nice. I tell you the truth, I don't care what goes in.
Okay, next we have MJM Land Development. This is a public informational hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public informational hearing?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And just a quick explanation, because it was asked a little bit about the process. This is the first step in a long process, so the public informational hearing is unique to Yorktown. The board, some years ago, in their ultimate wisdom, decided to put this in to kind of let the residents in the area or the property owners in the area know that something was coming. So this is the first time that the residents are allowed to speak on the record. After this, there's a process with work sessions that we go through. There is then a public hearing, like you just saw for the Guiding Eyes. That hearing was a little bit different because there was really no controversy about it. We are aware and sensitive that there is a lot of concern about this project. So we're going to ask the public one at a time to come up, speak, and if you could, ask questions or tell us about your concerns so that we could try to get the questions answered. We are very sensitive to your concerns and questions. We are your neighbors. We're volunteers on this board, and we take this charge seriously. That being said, we hold a civil, that everybody's polite, respectful, as we always are in Yorktown. That being said, we'll give it to Mr. Arena to kick it off.
Further north.
The AC went on for a minute, and it seems to have dropped off.
There it is.
You feel the AC go on for a minute, and then
That's it.
Hey, good evening, Joseph Arena, Principal Site Design Consultant, representing MJM Land Development Corp. The property in question is at 3232 Gomer Street, also formerly known as the Karagosian property, which at one point was going back, there was a farm. There's a existing residence on the property, a barn and some other outbuildings. The property fronts on Gomer Street. It's touched by right-of-way access off of London Woods, adjacent to a London Road, rather, adjacent to Ponderosa Estates, and to the east by Cordial Road. So that large parcel in the middle there, that's the parcel.
Joe, what is the parcel zone for?
So the parcel zone R120, which is a single family, which requires a minimum of 20,000 square foot for each lot. So the plan I have up now is a conventional layout for the site. What that means is that the configuration shown meets all the current zoning standards for setbacks, lot area, etc. So this conventional plan, which we're required to demonstrate that that we can make it meet the conventional standards, shows two roadways accessing, one off of Gomer Street that has 7 single-family residences on it, and another roadway coming in off of Cordial that shows 6 single-family residential units on it. In the center, you'll see the green portion, that green shaded area, that's a wetland in the center, and off to the east, there's a narrower wetland. The brown area shaded outside that, that's the 100-foot control area. So a few months back, we came to the planning board and asked them if they would look at this under the flexibility standards, which would allow us to reconfigure the project in such a way where we can reduce impacts by making the lots a little smaller, varying some of the setbacks, shortening the roads, etc. So what we came back with, so you sent this to the town board. The town board authorized the planning board to use the flexibility standards. So we prepared a plan which takes that into account. So this is the plan that we prepared, which, again, takes into account the flexibility standards. With this, we were able to pull the roads away from the buffer. We were able to give each home usable yards and good open space so that they're not infringing on the buffer. Again, we have same lot count, that has not changed. There is a buffer encroachment on the Cordial Road side. As you can see, the roadway comes in through the buffer there. Again, we've with this plan, we're significantly reducing the potential for impacts. Each lot will, when the time comes, will have its own stormwater management system. The property owners have agreed to oversize the stormwater management system to 20 to 25% above its required capacity to provide some additional buffering of any stormwater impacts. The lots will all be served by public sewer and public water. And the next step for us would be, once the planning board has accepted this layout or layout that we massage together, we would then begin really the hardcore engineering, and we would start to determine where and how we're going to do our stormwater management, the grading, and get the overall utility design for the project.
So, go ahead.
What's the date of that drawing up there? Because I don't have the same one in my materials. We got one from, looks like January.
No, there's one after that.
Wait, I'm sorry, there's a revision.
This was August, wasn't it?
August,
you're looking for?
There should
August
be another
2nd?
one. I'm just realizing that's not the correct one.
I got an August 2nd revision number 4.
Get to hit stop. There you go.
Again, just so everybody understands, there were a few iterations of the plans. The board did a site walk. They came back with this plan, went to the town board for approval, used the flexibility standards. So this is kind of a first flush of it. So what you see is not detailed. It's just kind of lines on paper right now. So he hasn't gone and done any of the real hard engineering. What you hear about with the stormwater is any development can't let any of the water out faster than it already is. And most of the times it's actually let out slower. But that's much further on in the process. So once we get this plan up from the planning department, I think we'll unless you got anything else to talk about, we'll go to the public.
No, I mean, there was a, and I have a figure for that, I'll bring that up after we get past this. There was a question about the road width of Cordial.
Yeah.
So we went to the GIS, the county GIS website, and took a look at the road width, and basically from 300 feet west of the property, the road width goes from the standard road width, which is approximately 24 feet, and it goes down to, in some areas, about 15 or 16 feet. So that's that 300-foot stretch, and then it continues to be narrow all the way up to Curry Street. But that's east of us. But west of us is about a 300-foot strip where it's substandard in width.
And just so everybody understands, the road width is the paved area. Past that, there's a right-of-way. So it's usually town in which, or property in which the town could do improvements, put infrastructure, widen, or improve as necessary. So that curb line is not necessarily on your property line. Sometimes it's 10, 12, 15 feet in is that property line. And everybody probably has their own individual surveys, and you can kind of locate that on your own. But that's the details he's talking about.
So, thank you, Ian. So this is the latest iteration of the plan. So as you can see, and the Gomer Street side is no different than the plan I just had up. However, the Cordial side, we pulled the roadway further out of the buffer, so we're impinging on less of the buffer with that. But it's same number of lots. Again, we're able to reduce the impacts of the proposed lot development and the road development by using the flexibility standards here. And still, most of the lots on this side exceed the minimum half acre anyway. We maybe have, reduced the frontage a little bit or took a little liberty on the setbacks, but it's still a very good plan and very close to complying to the zoning requirements.
Okay. All right, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments? You're just going to come up, state your name and address for the record, and fire away.
My name is John Sedembrino. I live at 31 Adela Court. Good evening, gentlemen. By the way, I want to commend you for taking this task on. The planning boards and all the boards in town are done by volunteers. I know you guys would rather be home watching the ball game.
8:15 start time.
I've been living in Yorktown Heights for about 40 years, and I moved into Ponderosa, I guess it was about 12 or 13 years ago. I'm on the board of Ponderosa. I enjoy it. We have a great community. A couple of thoughts. I'm also on the Open Space Committee, as Aaron knows, and we survey all the land in town that's posed for development, and we sometimes put a rubber stamp on it, or we say no, it shouldn't be developed, and so on. Now, this development, let me say this, is not going to affect me, even though I live but that's why I want to see this map. It's further away from my home, but I don't care because I have neighbors, and they're concerned about it. I walked that property, and I walked it in the springtime, and thank God I had boots on. And I see where you've negated the wetland area there in your drawing, which I commend you for doing that. Every piece of that property drains into Adela Court, where we live. If you look at those sewers, those little streams that are little tiny streams, and my neighbors will tell you that, little tiny streams during the summertime become torrential in the springtime, and they all flow in to our pond. And from there, they flow into the Gomer wetlands. Now, the Gomer wetlands, from what I understand, and I've walked that property also, is a sanctuary, and it can't be built on. And from the Gomer wetlands, that goes into Sparkle Lake. With Sparkle Lake, if you haven't been there, is full of invasive species. And I mean, they got mussels in there this big, and weeds and so on. And there from Sparkle Lake, it goes into one of the New York City reservoirs on the 202. So the impact of this development, I'm concerned about the stormwater runoff. When these new homeowners want to have the grandest lawn in town, better than their neighbor, so they're going to go to Home Depot and going to buy all this pesticide and ant killer and so on and put it all over their lawn. It's going to flow under our street, where the two sewers are, into our pond, and subsequently into the New York City reservoirs. So that's my biggest concern. As far as capitalism, I'm a capitalist. I believe everybody should be able to do what they can, but they also have to think of what their neighbors are going to be affected by. Okay, so that's my concern and my concern alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
My name is David Liebman. I live at 261 Cordial Road in Yorktown, New York. Before I get started, Mr. O'Fallon, am I correct? You are the director of the Town of Greenberg Department of Public Works?
Commissioner.
Commissioner. I got to tell you a funny story. I am the charter member, president, and director of the Town of Greenberg Public Works Fan Club. I kid you not. Meeting you is like meeting Superman.
Yeah, I bet.
It is. I'll explain to you why.
Not quite.
Well, he's got a big G on his chest. It stands for Greenberg. The reason is when I was a little boy, there was on the opposite side of what is now the Springbrook Parkway, was the Scarsdale Bath and Tennis Club. It is now a town park with a pool and so forth and so on. The way you access that place was to go across what is now the Springbrook Parkway, and on the way there you had to go through the Town of Greenberg garage. And that was about 4 or 5 little huts and a bunch of green dump trucks. Well, one day, after annoying my father incessantly every time we went to the club, I asked him if I could sit in one of the trucks, and it was a Sunday. And I guess he said, why not? And he put me in one of the trucks, and I was in my glory. I remember it vividly. And since then, I have been enamored of the Town of Greenberg Department of Public Works. And I know my trucks, and that'll bring me to the reason why I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. That led to most of my life in the construction industry, heavy construction, light construction, this, that, and so forth. I ended up working with firms doing construction logistics. It's a nice way of saying what goes where, when, and how. The first thing we would do before somebody even acquired a property, we'd go out and we'd look at the surrounding area. In this case, this area is surrounded by Cordial, London Road, and Gomer Street. What we were looking for is access to the site. Why? Because we had to move very heavy equipment through these roads. The road that will access I don't know what to call it. I guess we can call it the B development, the development that will go through Cordial Road, is the road that I'm concerned about. My knowledge of construction logistics tells me that no matter what the state or town, John, says about the width of a road, this stuff is barely, if at all, going to fit down this road, and I'll explain why. We park on this road. Unlike Gomer or London Road, we park on this road. Most of our homes have 4 and 5 cars. If you add that to the width of the road, it shrinks exponentially. Traditionally, what the mathematics would say is you add a foot to the width on each side of a car. A car, on average, measures 5 feet wide. So that's 7 feet. If you put a car on the other side of the road, that's another 7 feet. The average dump truck, like your big town of Greenberg Max, which I have lots of pictures of, measure about 10 feet. Now that's considered a small truck. As an example, the town of Greenberg has a roll-on, roll-off trailer with a tractor. That thing is also 10 feet wide, like a dump truck is. But if you put a bulldozer on it that has a 14-foot blade, where are you going to put this thing? It doesn't fit down the road. The same goes for logging trucks. Logging trucks are 12 feet wide on average. Now I'm giving you averages. A logging, sir, may I ask, how many acres is what I call the B part of the development going to be? Guess? 6 or 7 acres. Each acre yields, again, an average, 2 to 3 tons of usable logs. Again, an average, I have to stress that. You can't lock me into it. That all has to be put on logging trucks, 12 feet wide. That has to be removed from the property. It's not impossible, but it's real difficult to drive trucks of that size down Cordial Road. Now, you mentioned, and I was disappointed to hear that, Mr. Fahn, that you wanted, you didn't say you wanted, that the property, and indeed it is, on either side of the road, is owned by the town. I'm hoping that this road is not going to be widened to serve this development. And even if you did, when would you do that? I don't think they want to wait while all the planning goes into it and so forth, and the money is raised, and then the town board has to approve it. Is that correct?
There's a process and procedure.
Right.
The reason I explained the definition of the road width and the right-of-way is just so people had an understanding what
Okay.
it's on.
That's what I
At this
thought.
point,
It's
there's no
all up
plans,
in,
right.
it's in Neverland. So, it is basically at the moment truly not feasible to use Cordial Road in its current width to have 2-lane traffic of these monstrously large trucks going through a small town road. This road, Mr. Tediger, is this road a standard width in town? Is Cordial Road a standard width for most roads in town?
Cordial is, it goes, when it starts at Gomer.
Right, that I understand.
It's wider, and then
Right.
I would say it tapers down to standard a
And then-
little bit before the proposed entrance to the subdivision, then after that.
Right.
As it passes and after, it is substandard.
It's substandard, and that's what I thought. Now, I brought pictures with me. I don't know if it's necessary to show them to you at this point. But I lost my train of thought. But I'm not computer-oriented. I use my computer for a doorstop, and I communicate in smoke signals, and I use a telegraph, and I'm very happy to do that. My generation is very comfortable with that. But I took pictures, and I didn't unfortunately print enough. But I'd like to give them to you so you can see what I'm talking about. I know you know the area, but I think you need to see real-life pictures of what the road looks like and the problems that will pop up. Also, because the road is going through, it's not Gomer Street, which is basically a major thoroughfare. It has a big yellow line down the middle of it. London Road has a big yellow line down. London Road is huge. Cordial Road is not. There's no yellow line down the middle of Cordial Road. It's basically tiny. It's a little neighborhood road. What you're doing, and Susan, I know you want facts and figures, and I can appreciate that, but as that gentleman said, I think there has to be some level of understanding on the board's part. And I was gratified, Mr. Font, to hear what you said, that you are sensitive to these issues. But I think there has to be some level of understanding what joining Cordial Road to this development will do to us. And I'm not talking about the traffic yet. I don't want to bore anybody with that at the moment. But having those gigantic trucks, and they are gigantic, like that Mack dump truck that you have, many of them, it is going to be a mess, an absolute mess. Have you gentlemen ever been to a major construction site? The dirt that comes off those trucks is enormous. There will be dump trucks going up and down that street. Probably a tub grinder, which is a thing that eats trees, will be brought in. Certainly an articulated trailer, I don't even think can make that turn into, I don't know what the road's going to be called, but off of Cordial Road. I don't see them making that turn. So logistically, as they say in England, this plan is daffy. It's insane. It just doesn't work logistics-wise. And I hope you won't sentence this little road to be the construction entrance for us. Don't do this to us. There are many other roads you can use. 2 of them, to be exact. Now, can I keep going? I feel like
Please.
am I correct, sir? The original plan called for an entrance and an exit on Gomer Street? Is that similar? Well, it didn't always call for a road going to Cordial Road. Is that correct? I believe that's correct. Well, I don't understand that because you guys were concerned about the wetlands and that the road from the first, for lack of a better description, development to the second development couldn't go on the side closest to London Road because there was a wetland. I thought that wetlands were inviolate. You could not touch them, come hell or high water. But I came to find out through our town supervisor, when I asked about it, that it is possible to go through a small part of a wetland if somebody, I don't know who it is, gives permission. My point is, if you leave Cordial Road out of the equation, there must be a way to get from point A, or development A, to development B without involving Cordial Road. That's what we're asking you to do. These people, most of my neighbors, are here tonight because of that. We are very distressed. And again, I'm not 100% sure that you gentlemen have looked carefully at what is happening with this development. Indeed, that gentleman said he was a capitalist. I certainly am. He is entitled to do with his land with what he wishes within the law and within, of course, the zoning regulations. But we, as neighbors of that development, and we as your fellow citizens, have the right to have some level of protection. And that's what we're asking you, my neighbors,
from Cordial Road to do for us. Don't connect Cordial Road to this road, to this development, because putting the traffic aside, the new traffic, it doesn't work construction-wise. It just doesn't work. You can slice it, you can dice it, you can measure it 10 times. Those trucks are not going to fit up and down that road because people park on the road, and I'll give you some pictures.
If you could give the pictures to Ian, so they're for the record? Please, thank you.
They're all, I have multiples.
Yeah, they'll copy and get it to us.
Okay. But there's no explanation, so.
Thank you. No, we're good. I think unless you got anything new to add. I know there are a lot of other people here
Right,
that want to speak.
exactly, and I don't want to take up more time. But there's two other things. One of them is, I was under the impression, and I don't know what the law is, that when you build a development of this size, that part of it had to be, I won't say low rent housing, but there had to be a house or one or two houses that were low income. Is that correct?
You're talking about regulations for low-income or affordable housing?
Well, when you build, I don't know if I'm right. I haven't a clue. I'm just asking a question. Not anymore, okay. The other thing is this. The traffic on Gomer Street is going to be increased exponentially. Really a lot more traffic, and it's pretty heavily trafficked now. It seems to me it should be the builder's responsibility to install a traffic light at London Road and Gomer Street.
Part of this study, as we move forward, will be the traffic. So again, this is a very preliminary.
Okay, no, that's fine. Again, as I explained to you before the meeting started, it is very difficult to follow this process, and you explained it as best you could before.
And we'll try to do more explanation.
Right. And please, if you can add some sort of chart to the town website, maybe John's department could do it and lay it out so that when people want to go through this process, they can understand the process.
Understood.
It is mind-boggling. I thank you for your time. I hope you will consider heavily what I told you. And on behalf of my neighbors, again, I thank all of you gentlemen. And Mr. Bach, I didn't yell at you this time.
No, you didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Anybody want to, please, just again, your name and address for the record. Thank you.
John O'Connor, 35 Adela Court, in the Ponderosa Estates. Water is really one of the biggest issues for us in the Ponderosa, as John mentioned. Ponderosa is basically totally below the Gomer Farm, and all the water from Gomer Farm streams down into our properties. Our water control system is 35 years old, which is about the age of our complex at this point in time. And it goes down, as John said, into our retention pond and under London Road through the piping system into the wetlands. And water always creates its own pathways. So digging up the Gomer Farm, removing decades-old trees, grass, shrubs, everything that grows, in order to build the homes will greatly disturb most current water flows that exist. And mud, dirt, debris, etc. will stream downhill, enter our water control system during construction, especially during any rain and snow event, and especially negatively impacting our areas and systems and equipment. And who will be responsible to identify these problems and clean up and fix the problems when they occur during construction so our homes don't get clobbered? Who will dredge our compromised retention pond when all the mud and debris goes into our retention pond? And who will provide the necessary resources for any of these issues and the other issues to be resolved? The roads that are going to come either from Gomer Road, Gomer Street, London Road, or Cordial Road, are they going to be public roads into the complex of Gomer Farm, or are they going to be private roads? The reason I ask that is because the town sprays the roads before it snows, and then they salt them. All that's going to come downhill onto our properties, into the pond, into our piping system, and across the street into the wetlands. And as John said, into the New York City reservoir system. So if this project isn't approved in any way, shape, or form, the developer should be required by the planning board to set up an escrow account with substantial funding to address any water issues for during and post-construction into the future to cover expenses regarding any water issues on our properties or home. Give you an example. The Roma building, the hole in the ground was there for years. No action was taken. How would that impact us if nobody did anything? So if the developer clears all the land, builds a few homes, bails out of the project, prior to replanting trees, shrubs, etc., implementing their water control system, who's gonna protect us? How are we gonna be able to take care of anything? So we're relying on the planning board, the town board, to protect all of our interests, all of our neighbors surrounding the Goma farm. Thank you, gentlemen, for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your input. Anybody else? How are you?
I'm Evelyn Bartman, 229 Cordial Road. And all I'm very concerned about is the wetlands. And to my knowledge, you're not allowed to plant, you're not allowed to build on wetlands. Am I correct in that?
So anything in a wetlands requires a permit, so there's a process that has to be followed and gone through. But there's a procedure behind it. So it can be done.
Can be done.
And then there's mitigation.
So
Yeah, there's mitigation.
I asked
So,
about,
for instance, when we did the site walk out on the property, the middle area was obviously a very, and I think someone said when they went out there, they needed boots. Absolutely correct. A very sensitive area. We walked past that, and the wetlands upward of what I think someone called Section B, that wetland looks like it was created from pipes in the area discharging onto the property. So, again, depending on the type of wetland and the vegetation, the soils, and a lot of other things that go into it,
right.
there's determinations made. We haven't even started that at this point yet. So that's something that's gonna get looked at as we go through the process.
And how long will that take?
Process takes a while. It's nothing that happens quickly. Well, it's done for a reason too. You know, this, again, after tonight and the public informational is closed, I would urge all of you to really keep on top of the project because there's a lot that goes into it. And there are work sessions. At our work sessions, we discuss the project, but it's more of the applicant or engineer in this case and us going back and forth. So there's really no public input. At some point, there'll be a public hearing where we have a meeting just like this again, and we open it up to questions when there's a more formalized plan in place. So I would urge you to keep track of the planning department agendas and see what's involved. You could watch the meetings at home. They're all available. I find it very exciting, but there's a lot of information out there. So there's a long process involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Please.
Hello.
How are
My name
you?
is Scott Markman. Thank you all for being here. I know you're volunteers. I don't want to belabor all the good words that some of us said before this, so I'm not going to read even what I had. But if there's a pointer I could use for this, it would be helpful.
I don't know if we're that high tech.
I can use? Well, nevertheless, I'm at 253 Cordial Road. So very selfishly, then I'll try to get up here.
The hand's there.
Okay, right where the hand is,
Yep.
approximately right over here. And so I know that if this is allowed to go through, which I hope it is not, we're going to be talking about a tremendous amount of traffic, making that right-hand turn here, coming all the way down the hill where cars speed. You know, they're going to be hitting this location where this new road is. So people trying to make the right turn out of the new street or left turn, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be quite difficult. A little bit on the dangerous side, especially with the cars coming barreling down the road. so that,
Oh, I'm
that's-
sorry, if you could speak
to
into
the
the mic, I'm
microphone.
sorry.
Yeah, so that's very much my concern. My concern also is, we're going to have more garbage trucks making that turn into the road, so it's going to be, right next to the homes that are right around there. I don't even want to talk about the wetlands. I know that's a huge concern. I have that concern, but it's been spoken about already. So, I just wonder, if you guys decide to do this, you have to take this into consideration.
And I could assure you, we take all that into consideration. So what I'm hearing you say is you're concerned about the sight distance on the area, at the cordial?
Sight distance.
And the maneuverability.
Right, and I'm concerned about the little kids who live on the block, that's a danger point. And they play all throughout the block, up the block, middle of the block, down the block, and they ride their bicycles, do all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't want to see anything, bad happen to them because of this project.
Nor would we.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Anybody else? Please.
I'm Karan Gupta. I'm a licensed architect, and I've been in this property, 209 Cordial Road, 45 years. And I am really very sad to say that the development which I've seen in my neighborhood has been worse and worse and worse. For the reason even Ponderosa, which was states, which was developed in my being there, was not to my taste at all, though it was designed by a very famous architect in White Plains. And the traffic and all kinds of drainage problems, and even my house was cracked at one point because they were doing blasting when the Ponderosa estates were created. But the main problem which I'm seeing right now is the traffic. And I think the gentleman who was looking for no connection with the Cordial Road is absolutely right, because that is not the kind of road you can connect with this kind of cul-de-sac approach, This is not in my point of view. And being an architect, I'm telling you, whatever you were talking about, drainage problem or traffic problem or noise problem, this is I sum up everything in environmental issues. This is a big environmental issue. And all I'm requesting you people, because you're all professionals, that please look into it very carefully. There should be no connection at all with the Cordial Road, because the topography as well as the neighborhood which we have right now, the characteristic of the neighborhood should not be disturbed with this kind of approach, having this cul-de-sac from the Cordial Road. That's all I can say at this point.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? How are you?
Hi, Karen Ireton, soon-to-be Cordial Road resident. My in-laws live there. There a lot of times, like weekends, during the week. So anyway, I'm there a lot. I really just have questions. It looked like a traffic study being done with the ropes across the road was being measured recently over the summer. Was that
Do we
related
start that
to
yet?
that?
No.
Okay.
Wait.
I'm
Right.
sure they were, but maybe not for this project.
It wasn't related, okay, because it was in the neighborhood, because my question was, it was done in the summer, which is not really a good time to measure the actual traffic flow through that area.
Yep.
And is one going to be done, and is it going to be done during the school year when the buses, the kids, the cars, all that extra traffic is there?
So this is why we have these meetings.
Okay, that's what I'm
So that
asking.
the questions could be answered, so
Right.
that when we move through the process, we would ask that these things be done at certain times, certain things be put in place. But the traffic study, I don't think there's anything been.
Yeah, that was not pursuant to this project.
Okay.
That was a county effort.
Please.
Okay.
We'll give you your second.
All right. No, that was it. I just wanted to ask about that because there is a lot of traffic on that road.
Yep.
And like he said, the cars are parked there a lot. The kids are playing in the road. There's some days when I'm driving down the road and I have to come to a complete stop because someone's coming the other way, and two cars cannot pass each other on that road with the cars parked on either side. And a lot of cars drive too fast on there already. So if you're adding more traffic into the mix, I think it's going to be problematic. All right.
Thank you for your comments. You wanted to add something?
I wanted to answer that lady's question. Yes, indeed. There are traffic counters on Cordial Road. They're all over northern Westchester and southern Putnam. The state of New York is doing a traffic study. It has, as you said, absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with this. This came from one of the guys that was installing it. And if you look carefully, they're just about everywhere. So again, it has nothing to do with what you guys are doing or what the builder is doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that'll come in at a later point. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments? Please. How are you? Good.
My name is Mark Lieberman. I live at 3305 Wells Street. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that Mr. La Scala lives adjacent to this development project. And with all due respect, I believe he should recuse himself from this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Question? Please.
I failed to mention, about 2 years ago, on my own time, I did a fecal coliform sample of the water that comes into our pond. And I brought it to Yorktown Labs right down the street. And they informed me that there was fecal coliform in that water. Now, I suspect where it might be coming from, but I'm not a professor of that duty. So that is going to have to be addressed also, because something is in that water that goes under, in between two buildings. There's a stream that goes down underneath and into our pond directly. And I took that water right out of the pond. I hopped the fence, went in, took it, and brought it right to the lab.
Okay.
So please be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Grace Liano, Goma Street resident. At the meeting that we had with the town board for the flexibility, I had mentioned to the board that a possible solution, and the developer may not like it, is to just keep the 7 homes fronting on Gomer, use the back parcel for a recreational area, since back there's a lot of problems with the roadway. You have vegetation, you have wildlife. People were concerned about the wildlife leaving the area. And that would solve the issue of the children playing on the street. They'll have a place to have a swing set or whatever you could think of that would entice a child to go to that area. And it also could be an area for people to sit, like a park environment. And I realized that that would eliminate 6 homes from the project. But it's a good solution because it solves a lot of issues that everyone is talking about tonight. So I think you should look into that. The other thing is, if you do decide to go forward and have the 7 homes on Gomer and the 6 in the back, I would like you to consider the London Road entrance for that, because I'm the neighborhood watch captain for, God, since the 1980s on a portion of Gomer Street. And I am in constant contact with Dave Paganelli and Officer Robert Rohr about our traffic situation. It's unbearable. I can tell you of so many incidents where some of our neighbors have been really threatened by the way people drive. I'll give you one incident. It was a couple who lived across the street from me, a little bit down the road, and they were doing the speed limit, and a driver behind them passed them on the left, went into their driveway, knocked down 2 mature pine trees, and my neighbors, fortunately, were not injured. But this is the type of people driving on this road. It's terrible. They have no respect for anyone. They honk their horns. They do obscene things with their hands. They curse at you. And there's got to be some sort of a solution. And quite honestly, thank God Dave and Officer Rohr are working with us to get signs put up, more speed, 30 miles an hour. Hopefully we'll get the speed sticks from Gomer, from Route 6, and also from the Corner Deli. And then there's an issue with the Corner Deli that I've reported a number of times to Officer Roy, and he's quite aware of it. We have, when people come down Ridge Street and they're on Granite Springs Road and they make their right onto Gomer, they have to stop sometime because large construction trucks and people park on the side of the roads, thereby blocking people from getting into the Corner Deli or proceeding on Gomer Street. It's very dangerous. So what happened was, if a driver is parked in a vehicle and they are parking on the side of Gomer and blocking traffic, they are going to be fined $200. Not the company they're working for. They themselves, the individual, has to pay that fine. And I think that's a very good thing to do, because the other day, I called the police department. There was this hauler, the large haulers that have cars that they take out of the dealership? He had 2 on, but it was tremendous. And he's on my street. He did the speed limit, but he was not supposed to be there. I'm sorry. And this is the type of thing we do on a daily basis. It's really dangerous. Let me see what else I had. And then there was a gentleman at the meeting that we had at the town board. His driveway will be opposite the entranceway into the Gomer Street parcel where you have the 7 homes. And he said it's very dangerous because if something happens, it can go down the driveway of his driveway. So the town board said, well, maybe we can alter that entranceway so it's not, immediately facing yours, which is another good idea if we decide to do the 13 homes. Then another gentleman mentioned that he had an aerial view of that parcel and mentioned that some of the soil was contaminated because of the farming equipment, the chemicals they used. Now, who is responsible to look at that contamination? Is the homeowner supposed to ask those questions, or will that be rectified before any construction is going to be done?
That's a great question. That's the first we're hearing of it. That's something we're certainly going to look into.
Okay.
The
The
property
soil
owner would be,
samples.
they would be responsible for any cleanup.
All right, now this is getting a little bit off the road, but I thought about this. There's that lovely brick house that eventually they'll take down. Could that brick house be used as a wall from the Gomer Street, where the Gomer Street homes are going to be, on either side of the entrance into that parcel, as a retaining wall for any running water that may have going on Gomer? Because eventually what's going to happen is it's going to wind up on the opposite side of the street, which is lower than this parcel site. I know for a fact that one of my neighbors specifically put more trees on the frontage of his home, right across the street from me, and a retaining wall, a beautiful wall, because of the volume of the water coming down from my side of the street, which is higher. I'm on the east, they're on the west. Not only that, there's a big stream behind these homes that are on Gomer on the west side. And in the rainy season, they're inundated with all this water. And they have to use some sort of rectification. Now, how they're going to fix that, So that's another issue that's important. So I may not be bringing up things that other people are, but I've thought about this for a while, and I thought it was necessary you should hear it.
We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And a development like this is very intimate to the area, right? So we're looking at it. We're not direct neighbors to this, so any input or anything you see or want to talk about along the process, you could always email the department. They get everything. It goes into the record. It's very helpful.
Just one other point. Suppose you do decide that you do not want the developer to have the 13 homes, and you'll only grant him the 7 facing on Gomer. Is there some sort of law in the town where you could give him some money because he can't use that parcel?
Town would have to buy the property, or, you know, they would deed it off somehow.
Well, if he does a park, let's say.
Well, we have a whole park advisory board.
Good.
That's what they look into, and
Okay.
I'm sure you're gonna see them at some point during the process.
Okay, maybe you should have them involved in the process as well.
They always are.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Quick question. We like quick questions.
To continue my confusion, I'm under the impression that basically the development is approved in its entirety, but these are the odds and ends or cleanup.
No.
So the thing hasn't been approved at all?
No.
Oh.
That's what we explained in the beginning. This is the
It's
very
a long
first.
process.
Okay.
This is the
This is
the
start.
first
Well, like
look
I
at
said,
it.
I'm confused. So.
Well, we'll try to get some clarity on the website.
All right. Mr. Fawn, thank you, and gentlemen, thank you for your volunteer
Let me
service.
just add to hopefully clear up some of the confusion, okay? We have a proposal before us for something that an applicant who owns this piece of property wants to do. A large part of the work and the deliberation of my colleagues on this board is to assess the impacts of that particular proposal, okay? All of the comments that tonight spoke about various impacts of this proposal that we're required to consider as we go through the decision-making process. We're not near the end of that process, we're at the very beginning of that process. Everything that people said here is very helpful to us because it points out issues that we may not think about because we don't have the intimate knowledge, as Rich said, of being in the neighborhood the way you guys are. We are required under state law to consider those impacts, the environmental impacts of a project, as we review the suitability of this proposal. And if you watch us, many of our projects are different at the end than they were at the beginning because of things that people like yourselves are bringing out to us, and to consider those impacts as we go forward. We're going to have people come in during the review process, which is going to take a while, to consider wetlands and traffic and impacts on the neighborhood. And then we have to assess all that stuff and say, yeah, these are acceptable impacts or these are non-acceptable impacts, which we can't avoid. And then we get to decide based upon those kinds of ideas. So when these projects appear on the work session, you will typically see a wetlands consultant come in and advise us on the drainage and the wetlands and the stormwater and all of those issues. A traffic consultant may very well come in. One traffic consultant might very well be hired by the applicant. But the town has allowed us to hire consultants of our own, working for this board, in effect, for members of the public. They come in and make those recommendations to us. So it's an ongoing process that's at the very beginning right now. And as I said, to me, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone, all of the comments that you make tonight are important, they're significant, and they raise issues for us to think about. And that's where we're at right now.
Hector Guerrero. I'm at 217 Cordial Road.
How you doing?
Thank you. So I just want to real quickly just talk about some of the concerns that we have. I'm at the very bottom. I'm just going to point at this thing real quickly. So this is my property here. I'm at the very bottom. So we're about 2 houses away from that where potential road would be. We're at the very bottom of the hill that everyone's talking about. So we get, at minimum, I want to say once a year, sometimes twice a year, I'm forced to replace my mailbox because people are coming down that road, especially during the winter time when the roads are icy. So people are coming down the road and they hit the mailbox. So minimum once a year. I might go a year where I don't have to replace it, but guarantee the next year I'm replacing it twice a year. All right, so that's obviously a concern of mine. Another concern that I have is, again, I'm at the very bottom of this hill. we have there are two manholes or two, I guess, sewers, one on either side of the road. And both of those sewers, I guess they take all the running water, and ironically enough, it all goes into my backyard. There's I guess a stream, or it all dumps into our backyard. There's a stream, and it overflows, and my backyard, when it rains, it takes about a week or so for it to, you can't even walk through it. It's like you're walking through mud. So that's clearly another concern about it. I think most of the people on our street, our concern is, we live in a residential street, and someone mentioned that you can't get by, like if there's a car parked in the road and you can't get by, you have to wait for that. We actually like that. We actually like the fact that it's a small street where kids can go outside and play. They're playing, if you go on our road, there's a basketball court in the middle of the road, or someone has it on their property. We like that residential feel. And our concern is that widening the road, putting that yellow line in the middle, is going to make it more of a commercial road. And clearly we can't, kids aren't riding their bikes. There are some kids in our street I know that are handicapped or, use wheelchairs. Again, they're outside. It turns a residential street into a commercial street. And you may not consider it commercial because it won't be labeled a commercial street, but certainly the amount of traffic that people, it's gonna be forced to use this street. And that's our concern. This is progress. This is great. It's progress, it's great for the town. I'm sure everyone there's money coming in and everyone can benefit from that. But we, the people on this street, we don't. It doesn't help us. This is a small street and we want to keep it a small road. We want to keep it a small town feel.
Yeah, at this point, there's no proposal to widen or stripe the road.
Okay.
Right now, we're just looking at.
I understand. I think we understand what this is. We're simply in the beginning phase of this whole process, and again, we want to express our concerns. We don't want a commercial street. We don't want a larger street. We want to keep it a small town feel. Kids playing in the street, kids riding their bikes on the street. That's all we're asking. We can't stop progress. I think this is great for everyone. The property values are going to go up. This is perfect. But not on our street. Don't shit in our house. We don't want that. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't want to be offensive, but we don't want it on our road. All right, thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you. Please.
I have one question. Was this property purchased with a weasel clause? In other words, can the developer weasel his way out of it if he doesn't get approval from you?
That's not part of our review. Yeah,
We don't know.
I heard that this property was purchased regardless of what he could get put on the property.
That's not what sometimes there's an assumption, especially with some of the commercial development out there. I read about it in the blogs all the time. Oh, another Pizza Hut, another pizzeria, another Taco Bell. We do not get involved in that. As Aaron said, we review the application that comes in front of us. We don't get involved in the first drawing or who owns it or the sale. We just look at the application.
This is the second time this property's come before you.
Again, we don't get involved in that of it. We just look at the application presented.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we want to thank you all for coming out and letting us hear what you think. Again, you can always contact the planning department. They're there, 5 days a week. They're very accessible, and emails are very helpful. And if you do take pictures of something you see, please send it their way. Thank you very much. So I have a motion to close the public informational hearing.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Is this the second time this has been here?
Not that I know of.
Okay, I didn't think so. I mean, it came once, then it went to the town board.
That's probably what they're talking
Which is probably what it is. Hey, John?
We're not done.
You said it came twice?
Call me at work.
Rich, we're not
Yeah,
done.
we got to keep going. We got one more. All right, take care. We'll give everybody a minute to get out, settle up.
Okay. I look,
There's so many
Aaron
rumors
Rodgers
flying
left
around.
with an ankle injury in the first set of downs.
Really?
We only saw this.
How far into the game?
First half, first quarter. I haven't been looking. Looking at chicken coop? Yeah. Second quarter. I get it.
Just so you know, the legal width of a truck on the road is 10 feet, not 14. With the load. No, I know. I was just saying for your neighbor.
Oh.
8 feet is the width of the truck.
Brings one sheet.
For the load.
Look at that.
Oh, there's two sides. Here, you got a clean side for the next one.
See you later. Everything good? See you, Joe. All right, we're gonna move on.
Joe. Nice talking to you.
Okay, next on the agenda and last, we have the Penna subdivision. This is a pre-preliminary application. Locations 3032 Manor Street and Kipling Drive. How are you?
This is,
I didn't skip anything, did I?
yeah, motion to close the regular portion of the meeting. And
Oh, yep, this is in the work session. Thank you very much.
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay. See what happens your way? Well,
Yeah. And don't send postcards to.
How are you?
We were worried about you.
You should have been.
Good evening, and thanks for having us. My name is Joe Wren, professional engineer, actually from Old Saybrook, Connecticut, so a couple hours east of here. I just happen to know the family that grew up in this house, and we've done quite a bit of work, preliminary planning stages for this particular property. They do not propose on developing this themselves at all. They just wanted us to get this to this point, get us to this discussion, to this point with you, to get your feedback from this. We worked extensively with town staff through several iterations of potential plans for this property. And again, their interest is not to develop the property themselves, just to see what the potential yield is for this particular property, and then proceed from there. But they will not be building the road or anything else. Right now, as you said, this is a workshop situation, and it's a preliminary application. There is nothing finalized, nothing even proposed construction, no proposed grading or stormwater, anything on here. It's just to get a workshop, just to get your feedback so we can proceed to the next step. So thank you for having us. Bob Penna and his sister Gina are here. They grew up on the property several decades there, and know the surrounding area and the property like the back of their hands. They had some very fun stories also that they shared as they grew up on the property. So the location is, and I have boards, but Robin said she could put everything up on the screen, so we'll just do it this way. I think it's clearer for everyone to see. The location, the address of the existing house on the property is 3032 Manor Street. There is a location map up on the top left-hand side if you're not familiar with that area. If you want, Robin can probably zoom into that location just so you can see the general location in town. Okay, so you can see Manor Street coming in from the south to the property. The property is about 8.7 acres total, more or less. Off to the east of the property, you can see two other roads, Taconic Woods Road and Kipling Drive. Both of those roads are not town-accepted roads. They were built some time ago. I don't know the exact age, but decades ago. They were not built to town standards, and they are not accepted town roads. So we had several iterations looking at potentially using some access from those roads and so forth, and with a lot of discussion with town staff, what we ended up with, the plan that's in front of you for this preliminary application, accesses all of the 10 lots from the extended Manor Street. So Manor Street is currently a public road with public utilities and has the proper width as an accepted town street. So we're extending the road approximately 420 feet into the property, providing a full fire apparatus with, turnaround there which there currently is not. The road ends at a straight dead end, just cut off. There's no way of really turning around. Any large vehicle or emergency apparatus, school bus, garbage truck, whatever it might be, cannot easily turn around there and has to either back down this section of Manor Street, which is dangerous. The fire code recommendation and requirement is that a fire truck can't back more than 150 feet, otherwise it's considered not safe. So in this case, the fire truck could move forward, turn around in that area, going straight all the time, going forward the entire time, turn around and come out. Snow plows, school buses, everything would be able to do that. Without getting too deep in what the proposal is right now, just wanted to go through some of these other checkpoints here. The gross land area is about 8.7 acres, more or less. And it's in the R120 single-family zone. The 20, obviously, as we know, is 20,000 square feet, which is a little less than an acre. So all 10 lots, they range from a half acre to 0.7 acres. The largest lot on this preliminary plan is the farthest north one at the end of the cul-de-sac. That's 0.7 acres. The one next to it, I believe, is 0.6, and the other ones are 0.5 and change, so larger than the 20,000 square feet required. All of the lots, as I mentioned before, are accessed from the extended road. You can see all of the lots, the 5 on the west side of the extended road have direct access with those driveways. On the right side or east side, there's another 3 that have direct access. So that's 8 out of the 10. The other 2, instead of fronting those on Kipling Drive, those have a shared driveway and come out to the extended town road as well. So none of them have access to Kipling Drive, so it wouldn't force any additional traffic onto those streets because they do not meet town standards to handle that. And fire apparatus, emergency apparatus would more easily be accessed from the town accepted road. If Robin can go, we have 2 survey maps, one very old from the original subdivision in the area. We can start with that one. Yeah, that one. Thank you, Robin. So this is the Lee Hole map, and I believe this was from 1941. And you can see what was then called Ridge Road and Parkway Drive. Ridge Road is now Kipling Drive. Parkway is Taconic Parkway Road. And so this property, if you can see lots 9 and 10, those were the original 2 purchased by this owner. And then 8 to the north, that was later purchased, I believe a year later, that was purchased then. So they owned 8, 9, and 10. And then sometime after, several years after 1941, Robin, if you go to that other survey map, just to the west, here this map is oriented, well, Robin rotated it, thank you. Kipling Drive is on the right or on the east. Manor Street is to the south. And you can see that 6 acres, that shaped property. So that touches what would be lots 8 and 9 that we showed you in the other map. And then 10 is just further to the east. So with all of that, the land is contiguous. You can see where Manor Street is on here. That would just be extended to the north, as we showed you in the concept. And then the lots cut out of that. Again, none less than a half acre. There is one house on the property. If you can go back to that concept plan, please. So if you're coming up existing Manor Street, the first lot on the right has an existing house on it, right about where the cursor is. There is an existing house there. This shows a new house and a driveway. Someone could, on that lot, it's on its own lot right now. The lot line is shifted just to provide enough acreage for the other 2 lots directly to the east of it. But that house can either be maintained as it is and renovated, or it could be, taken down and a new one built in its place. But it is supported. The area is all served by public utilities, so there's water and sewer in Manor Street. actually the water main. If Robin zooms in a little bit to the intersection of the new and the old Manor Street. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Robin. So here on the right-hand side, you can see there's an existing sanitary sewer easement from the cursor over to the east. On the left, there's a storm drain easement to the left. And then the water line, you can see the W dash line that goes up to the north there, that goes around the existing house lots and then down Kipling Drive. And there is a fire hydrant, fire hydrant at the end of that water main as well. So all of these lots in this pre-preliminary application would be served by public water and sewer. The topography of the land, if Robin can zoom out a couple ticks. The majority of the topography of the land goes from the center lot where the existing house is to the northwest. And to the northwest, you could see the outer boundary of the property in red there. To the west and northwest of that is all Town of Yorktown open space. Also in the southeast, behind the lots furthest to the east, on the south side, there's additional Town of Yorktown open space. So the majority of any runoff would continue in that westerly, northwesterly direction. There is, you see the large open space area behind the lots to the west. That area with the green stormwater basin there, again, that's just conceptual at this point in time. But all of that land area is about 2.5, 2.7 acres total. So instead of trying to get some more rear lots or try to reconfigure this to try to get more lots out of this, we had a couple of iterations that showed, I believe, 12 and 13 lots. But the owners did not want to do that. They wanted to keep it similar to the neighborhood around it, which if you look at the existing neighborhoods, I have a handout here as well. Consistent with the R120 zone, you can see that many of the lots on Taconic and Kipling, some are double lots, some are split into half-acre lots, some are combined into full-acre lots. Manor Street, as you can see on this handout I'll provide to you, they're all essentially half-acre lots as well. So in a nutshell, it's consistent with what's already there.
Thank you.
The rest of the topography, the majority of the topography, as I said, goes to the west and northwest. We have that open space as a buffer. So any runoff from lots, of course, a lot of the runoff would be contained on the lots and in the road itself. As any pass to the west, it goes overland for quite a distance and through stormwater management before it ever leaves the property. Once it leaves the property, it's all that vast acreage of town open space there, which would provide, additional buffering and renovation at that point in time. This is pre-preliminary, so there are no wetlands delineated or anything. The wetlands are just to the west of the property, we believe, just from field observation. If you look closely at the contour labels all the way down in the southeastern section there, I believe there's a 420 elevation, and that's about the lowest elevation. It goes up on a moderate grade all the way up to the proposed road extension. So there's no wetlands that we know of on the property. It all has a pretty consistent slope up, but just off the property to the west, there appear to be some wetlands that would be, of course, all accounted for properly with this. And we kept the road and all of the tree clearing and development away from that west side. Most of it on the corridor of the extended roadway. The Manor Street extension, I think I mentioned before, is about 420 feet. There's about 800 feet or so, just roughly sketching from the location map, to the next intersection to the south of Salem, which is another town-accepted street. So the total cul-de-sac length would be approximately 1,200 feet or a little bit more than 1,200 feet, which is not very long for a dead-end street, but the benefit, one of the largest benefits out of this plan is, again, as I mentioned before, providing that turnaround for emergency access and large vehicles. The other iterations that we looked at had some of these lots accessing and fronting on Taconic Woods and also Kipling Drive. But again, through several discussions with the town staff and through several iterations, it was, this particular one was chosen, and we further developed this plan because all of the lots are accessed through a town-accepted public street. The ownership of Kipling Drive and Taconic Woods is kind of a gray area at best. No one
Not
really
surprised.
knows. And as far as the maintenance, because no one really understands the ownership, maintenance is kind of questionable as well. So as far as passable in the wintertime and roads being properly maintained and trees being cleared and so forth, it's safer and everything for any lots to access a town-accepted street. So that's why we chose that. With that, again, the owners of the property here, I'm here if you have any questions. It's a work session. We just wanted your feedback, your initial feedback on this, to take back to the drawing board for them to make a decision on how to proceed.
Question, in the open space area you got shown, there's an existing woods road, at least sketched out. What, is there something there, or?
It's interesting. I don't, the owners may know a little bit better history, but if you follow that all the way up through, it extends all the way up to the end of Taconic Woods Road. So at some point in the past, there was some sort of trail, some sort of path. It's pretty well being, it's not really maintained, but it's a clear path through the woods.
May I ask which you're talking about, the east, north, south?
The one that comes off of Taconic Woods Road and then goes to the south.
Taconic Woods is supposed to be.
If you could, just, sorry.
Just tell them who you are.
You don't want Tom to get mad. Oz in the back there gets upset.
I'm sorry. I'm Bob Penna. I'm one of the co-owners. When the old town maps originally foresaw Taconic Woods going through to where the Taconic Parkway is. That's why it was called Taconic Woods Road. This was all farmland. It belonged originally to the Lee family, and then that was subdivided, and people bought different parcels. When my grandfather bought this in '47, both were just plain dirt roads. Somebody, and I don't know who, there's a ridge where you're seeing that line that Joe was talking about. It's right before a relatively steep drop-off, which is where the wetlands roughly begin. And people were using it for hunting, and then later with ATVs. It's never really been a road. Even when I was a kid, it wasn't a road. It was a path, but it was level right before everything dropped off. And what you're seeing is decades and decades of use, but it was never a road. Did that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you.
Board? I have a couple of questions. One, I see, is there an issue for us in terms of houses in a subdivision being on a private driveway or shared driveway at this point?
No, you can have them. They're less desirable, typically.
We don't have to worry about those two having no road frontage, is that,
You have to worry about them because they'll need a variance to have no road frontage.
okay?
You can access them from Kipling and bring in a standard road up to the point that they can access them is another way of looking at that.
The way that we looked at it is they actually have road frontage on Kipling, and they're accessed from Manor Street.
They don't, but Kipling's not a improved town road, so you don't have it.
So the lots that are already built in there, they got developed without frontage?
They
on
either
town
got
road?
developed prior to that code requirement.
Okay.
I don't think prior to the actual code that we have.
Mhm.
Or at some point, way in the past, they received that
Okay.
282 variance.
Yeah, I believe one of the, the way that we might have looked at that is one of them is a flag lot, and then the other one has access over the pole of the flag lots. Or another way that it could be cut anyways, if it's not shown like that now, it could have frontage out to Manor Street, and then the one behind it, stacked behind it, could have an easement over that one as well. There are ways to do that. You can see that existing house lot has way more frontage than it needs. So we could reconfigure those lots and just, they would have frontage on the street, but there would be one driveway back to two, and then they would have frontages. Property lines would come out to Manor Street. We can do that.
Another concern I had was the length of the cul-de-sac that you were talking about. And I think we ran into this issue in Shrub Oak at one point.
Mhm.
We were talking about a subdivision up there, and this seems considerably longer for a dead-end street. I'm not sure whether that, what the impact of that is, but I see you also have an emergency access on that paper road on Kipling.
That's what's shown on this. There would be, if that was an emergency access, there would be some sort of gate or something that local authorities would have access to, or bollards that you can drive through if you had to. That was just put on there. We don't think the length of the cul-de-sac is excessive. It's 420 feet. It's 800 feet from there, from that point to the next town street, so it's only about 1,220 feet, which typically is acceptable for a length of a dead-end road.
Remember what we
That
did?
exceeds our code requirement.
Okay.
750, I believe.
Yeah.
I have a question. Kipling Drive is not a town road?
No, Kipling and Taconic Woods are not town-accepted
So-
streets.
Do you have the right to put in the emergency road where you've shown it and connect to Kipling? Or
I'll let Bob answer that. They did hire an attorney to look at ownership of that, and like I said before, it's a gray area at best.
I know, yeah,
On the
that's-
ownership of it, but there is a road there. They actually installed a water main. You could see the W dash line all the way up, and installed a hydrant right at the end of that as well to provide fire protection up into that area. We think that they do have vehicular rights, access rights to that road. But I think Bob worked with the attorney on that. I think he could probably fill you in better than I can.
Who don't I want to annoy?
Hmm?
You said I didn't want to annoy somebody.
Oz.
He's in the room.
back.
We-
You can't see him.
We
The
try to
great-
keep
the
him in
great
the room,
Oz.
but he's running the whole thing.
Man behind the curtain.
Yep.
To answer your question, sir, the original access was Kipling Drive. When I think it was the original address was 892 Kipling Drive. So yes, our original deed to lots 9 and 10 included, and 8 included the, I don't know if the term is easement, but we had that right. All right, bear with me here. When I was in college, which was 73, Manor Street went only as far as the last telephone pole. Subsequent to that, it was extended, and 6 new lots were added. This was sometime in the late 70s or early 80s, because it was around the time I was in grad school. So, at that point, my aunt, because we were coming in through the dirt road, which was virtually impassable most of the year, suddenly the town road was right here. So my aunt bought the adjacent property, the one that John showed you, that oddly shaped polygon, which allowed us to access the end of Manor Street. That's when we got the change of address to Manor Street. John mentioned something about this cul-de-sac and emergency vehicles. Right now, if a fire truck had to come down there, it would have to either back in or back all the way back out to Salem. Right now, the garbage trucks back in because there's no way for them to turn around. I've never personally seen a school bus on that street, but I imagine, there is somebody here who lives on the street, and he could probably tell you about school buses. But right now, no sizable trucks, for example, moving vans can't turn around. They either have to come in on Salem, make a left onto Manor, and then back all the way, or come in frontwise and then back all the way back out. So one of the advantages we contend is the fact of this this cul-de-sac. But that's the question, you asked about Kipling Drive.
So the question I have, further from where I left off, is who owns the land between the two red lines where that emergency access is proposed? In other words, do you own from Manor Street Extension over to where the green stops, or is that not your property?
Okay,
I believe it is. So because.
Believe it is what?
I believe that the lot owners, which these folks are.
Right.
Own to the center line of the right-of-way, but the right-of-way is there for the town to take it as a road, as an irrevocable offer of dedication.
So
they have rights to it, they have rights of access, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, let me get to the point that I was trying to
So
gather.
are you talking about the extension of Kipling Drive? Is that what you're talking about?
The extension of Kipling Drive that's shaded in green, who owns that?
Yeah. As far as I know, we do.
Okay. So what I was trying to get to, and I think you've given me enough information to suggest it, is that you could propose a road to a cul-de-sac to access your back lots on property that you own. And the end of the cul-de-sac would connect to Kipling Drive, whose ownership is questionable.
But here's the problem. Kipling Drive, at this point, is paved to the extent that you would say a driveway is paved.
But that's not your concern, and at this point, we don't know who owns it. I'm just looking at your proposed development and saying it would be cleaner and less problematic to simply extend a road that you would own and build and end it in a cul-de-sac and serve those back two lots and not have a problem.
So you're saying put a cul-de-sac at the end of the green on
That's
Kipling?
correct. And have that connect by virtue of physical
But
connection.
not continue farther on Kipling?
Exactly, because you don't own it any further. You can only go as far as you own it, and that's why I was questioning the ownership.
Well,
So
again-
you would build a road that would then be dedicated or offered for dedication to the town.
Well, I'm not building it. We're just, again.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying, then it would be a real road with real frontage that would be controlled by the town to the extent that it affects this proposed
To your
development.
point, it's a very good one, but let me just interject. So that right-of-way, we're not considering it. We're considering the boundaries of their property in the red on that plan. So if Robin goes back to the original 1941 map, you'll see the right-of-way for Kipling Drive. It was this one. So it was then called Ridge Road. So you can see lots 9 and 10, that's the property they own, that are on this particular original approved. You can see it's all signed and everything, October 7th, 1941 there from
Okay.
the planning board. The access for those roads, that's why, there's some argument to be made that that's real frontage, because this was an approved plat map approved by the town of Yorktown in 1941 when this property never had any access to Manor Street at all.
So lot 8 and 9 are,
The three that we're showing.
8, 9, and 10. They control 8, 9, and 10.
okay. So 8, 9, and 10.
9 and 10 are 400 feet long along the frontage.
And they have rights to access along what is shown as Ridge Road now,
Now it's called
whatever it
Kipling.
is, Kipling.
Drive.
So 9 and 10 in your proposal are now divided into 3 lots, is that accurate?
3 lots.
Okay, I got you. All right, there's my confusion. Okay.
What is Parkway Drive now?
That's to Conic
Conic
Woods, yep.
Got it.
Which also just sort of ends all of a sudden at the drop-off. At one point, there was a plan the town was going to build like.
Oh, there he is.
That's Tom. Come forward.
I keep forgetting the man behind the curtain. At one point, the town, and this is circa 1940, the town was considering building some sort of swimming facility. And if you take Taconic Woods Road and you'll go all the way down to the stream, I forget the name of that stream, there is a stone bridge. And this is right where you now today would start walking onto what is the town park. There is a giant swimming hole of fieldstone that was built circa 1940. The idea was they were going to dam up that stream and create some kind of swimming hole. But other than frogs and snakes, it was never used. If I can give you any more history, let me know.
Thank you.
You know, the idea was that in 1941, that was what was approved. That was, those lots were bona fide lots. So there are definitely two lots there. What we're asking for in this preliminary plan is to combine those two, 400 feet of frontage, and make 3 lots out of the 2 that meet your current regulations. There's, you know, again, with a signed, approved map, there's, you know, there are definitely 2 lots there with bona fide frontage that were approved in the past. So the question is, can you create the 3rd one there with today's regulations?
I just think.
Yep, I hear you.
Would solve some of the,
Yep.
Can I
the
make a
planning
sug-
issues that.
Make a suggestion? When we spoke with Mr. Wren a number of times, he had, and we went through several iterations, we didn't, you know, make an opinion in the positive or the negative of either. We discussed basically the pros and cons of each one, what the
Correct.
pros and cons of
Mhm.
the neighborhood are, et cetera, to the extent that we could. So my suggestion is that they present all of those iterations so that you see some of the mind work that went on, and, you know, and how they came to the conclusion that this is where they want to go. There was some very good, you know, thought processes that were represented by those iterations. So I think it's probably a good thing for you to see them, since you're looking at this and saying, what if this, what if that? So that's my
Yeah,
suggestion.
that's good.
Yep.
I think Robin may have those. They weren't really presented as part of this application because we felt we worked through those. The reason why those weren't selected to present to you is because most of them access the property from Kipling and Taconic Woods versus Manor Street. And as the attorney was doing the research on Kipling and Taconic Woods, there was more and more question of the ownership and can we improve those? If we improve it, do we have to improve it all the way out to the next connecting town road, which would just make it not viable? So there were a lot of things that went into that. There were some iterations, as John mentioned, that were more lots than 10. I think 12 or 13 might have been the most that we had, utilizing all of the property and not incorporating open space. We talked to the owner and their real estate professional, who's also here, about potentially creating rear lots stacked behind these lots to the west. But they said, no, we don't want to overbuild it. We don't want it to look overbuilt. We just want to extend the neighborhood. We don't want to put houses behind houses in that configuration down the slope and so forth. So we ended up with what feels like to us and to them as a comfortable layout.
And I think as we move forward, especially when we have public informational and people are able to speak at that point, it would be a good idea, as John said, to kind of lay out how you got to this point. I also think it would probably be a good idea, maybe not right away, but as we start to get some leaf fall, to do a site visit out there.
Also, you have conceptual open space. What ownership would take over that property?
We had some discussion on that. It is, you know, it's a pretty good percent of the overall property. But it's generally, overall, it's a small parcel. I mean, the whole thing is 8.7 acres. I think with the road and the lots, they're about 6 acres. So there's another 2.7 acres for stormwater and for open space. That's a buffer. Now, this is surrounded, as I mentioned before, it's surrounded in 3 or 4 different locations by Town of Yorktown open space. So there was some discussion of that, if that was viable, or would just belong to like a homeowners association, and they would maintain it as open space as well.
Anybody any questions at this point? I'll tell you, very nice pre-preliminary application.
Thank you.
Very detailed, very well thought out.
We were guided very well by John and Robin. You can,
We're
they probably will tell you that we were persistent at times, but, you know,
Good thing.
we got to this point, and, you know, I think we ended up with a fairly strong and solid plan
Oh, it's like
for
you
this
did your homework.
process anyways.
And we're very lucky in town to have such great professionals. But, please.
Apropos of that open space that was just mentioned, there's a lot of wildlife in there, And one of the things that my sister and I did not want to do, besides we didn't want to overbuild, we didn't want to over-impact the neighborhood, but one of the things we did not want to do was make that open space, those woods, go away. I traversed every square foot of that as a kid. More times than you could, it was called Bobby's Kingdom. That was, you know, where I lived. I know that a couple of residents have, I believe Nancy had sent us some correspondence, and one of them talked about the wildlife. Well, one of the things this does, as opposed to the earlier plans, it leaves an awful lot, and it abuts that town park. So if you were to do a site visit, there's a lot of woods there. So I just want to add that as one more benefit of this. If you, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Rob, maybe we could set something up towards mid-October, maybe a little bit, when we start to get some leaf fall. All right, and we'll go investigate Bobby's Kingdom. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
So I have a motion to close the meeting.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Oh, it's halftime. 13-3.